Hello and welcome to Items On, the podcast where you get to follow your favorite Melee players and personalities both on and off the sticks. I'm your host, Ethiopium, and today's special guest is CLM's very own Tenacity. Tenacity, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Living the dream, another interview, so I can never complain.
Awesome.
Let's get right into it. Usually how we start these interviews is what were you doing before you found Melee, and how did you get into the scene?
Yeah, so before Melee, my experience in esports was through Call of Duty mainly. I watched Optic gaming videos on YouTube, and I remember I watched like Call of Duty Champs in 2016, and that same year I watched Evo. Um, and I watched Evo, and that's how I got into Melee. But yeah, before that, I just normal stuff, just you know, going through school. I didn't really play any sports, so like a lot of my social stuff was like through like video games, or I guess I played like a little bit of baseball, but yeah, just the normal kid life, just school, homework,
Did you
video games.
were you like inundated with video games at an early age? Did that come later on, like in high school? Like how did you start in
Yeah.
video games in general?
Yeah, it was pretty early on. My dad got this racing wheel for PlayStation 2 when I was pretty little, and he played Gran Turismo 4 on it. And one day I wanted to join, and we like pretty quickly were just taking turns on the wheel, just like trying to beat each other's times. And then later on, he didn't know how to use like a regular controller, but I did because like I was just playing like Lego Star Wars on the PS2 as well. So we started racing each other with the Gran Turismo, like him on the wheel and me on the controller, and like sort of got competitive and like that, and then it just sort of built from there. Just playing games like my whole life.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you had like that connection with your dad through video games. Shout out Gran Turismo 4 too. That game was so peak, man. Oh my goodness. That game was
Yeah,
awesome.
banger soundtrack.
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes if I play Melee, I got the soundtrack in the background. It's a great soundtrack. I guess that leads to my next question. So you said you were getting into Call of Duty at this time. What Call of Duty are we talking about? I think the people want to know. And were you like
Yeah, it
playing
was.
competitively? Like how far did you take that?
Yeah, it was BO3. So like 2015, 16 area. Um, I watched like there's a show that Optic used to do. I don't know if they still do it called Vision, where it was like really high produced, like sort of behind the scenes, and also like covered their like competitive team as well. And I watched that and like got into like I was like, oh, the way they're like communicating to like do really cool plays is like, interesting. 2017 was like the year where I really like got into watching it and like playing as well. Like I subbed for like a team for a little bit, and then um, didn't play in 2018 just because like I was like junior in high school, so I really had to like lock in for school. And then like 1920, I started like playing again, and I ended up playing for like the DePaul team.
Wow, so
Uh,
you play collegiately. That's crazy.
yeah, it was a ton of fun. I only played for a year because I got really burnt out, from like scrimming every day and like playing my own and like matches and all that. But that's sort of how I got into like the collegiate side, and that like built into Melee actually. I was talking about this actually yesterday, how like there was a ranked game I played on Modern Warfare 2019 where I like ripped some guy off a head glitch. I like two bullet him from across the map, and he invites me to his party and asked me to fill for a scrim for like whatever team. And I filled and I did okay, but I loved it. It was so fun, and I started like playing with those guys, and then I like started the DePaul team and like got into DePaul esports, and then like got a job there, and it just blossomed into like I went to when we started in-person school again. There was like ultimate tournaments, and I wanted to like run Melee because I watched Melee because of Evo, because
Hmm.
all my friends were fighting game people. They all watched Street Fighter. Um, I think they were all fans of Tokido. I think he won in 2016 or 17. I don't remember. Um, but they all wanted to like watch Tokido, I think. And I was just like, oh, Melee is cool. Like we played Brawl. Like we didn't even play Smash 4, we just played Brawl. And we watched Melee, and that was awesome. Like the clip of it's S2J West balls, like the
Yeah.
S2J,
Yeah.
what are you doing? This is Evo. That clip was like, holy smokes, like this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I started watching Melee then. And it's sort of like there was no way for me to go to locals. So I just watched, and then once there was an opportunity to like have a melee tournament that I could go to, I started going and got into it that way. Sorry, that was like a crazy tangent.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly what the people want to hear. I mean, I guess a follow-up question with that is like, do you feel like at that time, even through COD, was that like your competitive outlet? Did you always see yourself as a competitive person?
I really wasn't competitive until that like kind of moment. I was just playing like ranked on COD because like that was the closest to like it was like the game mode with the least amount of like bullshit. Sorry for swearing,
No, you
but
can curse. Yeah, no worries.
okay, cool. Yeah, it was like the game mode with like the least amount of bullshit in it. Like I hated like claymores, like riot shields and everything. So it's
Hmm.
like and like that was what like the pros were playing. Like that like those same game mode. So same game mode. So I ended up like really vibing with that, and then I just like was like, oh, the rank goes up, like brain feel good type deal.
So,
So yeah, that's how I got into it.
so you were talking about how you were watching Evo with your FGC homies, and you watched Melee. You're like, this is so sick, but you couldn't find any locals. You weren't able. You said to go to any locals at that time. How did you find yourself slowly into the in-person side of Melee?
Yeah, so Slippy is so I watched like the doc after watching Evo, and then I would watch like every tournament basically. Like anytime there was like a major going on, I would watch. I watched like all the summits. Summits were like my favorite event to watch, I remember. Um, and then the way I got into tournaments was because Metagame came out, and there was a Metagame after party tournament that Unsure ran in Chicago, and it was on Slippy. And I was like, oh, this is a tournament that I can enter. So I entered that one. My first ever set, I think, was against Unsure, which is kind of crazy because he ended up being my TO mentor.
Hmm.
Um, and that I like had like a great time. Like joined the Discord, everyone was super welcoming, and I found out about Midlane. I was like, oh, I got to go to this when I moved to the city because I was going to the school at DePaul,
Hmm.
but I lived like too far away to go to locals. So that's how I sort of got invested in like wanting to go to an event.
Break down that first tourney experience for us. Who were you playing? What was your thoughts going into it? It's always fun to hear.
Yeah, I always played Falco. I liked Falcon eventually because of like S2J, and then I just could not play him at all. I had my little GameCube, my parents' old CRT, and I just could not play Falcon at all. He was too fast. So I played Falco because it was easier to wave dash with Falco, and I just liked wave dashing. But yeah, I got destroyed. I think I took like a couple stocks. I can look up the bracket right now actually, because I was looking at this the other day. Um, but yeah, I got annihilated. I remember Unsure. I played him, and I was like, didn't even know Fox could do all this. Even though I've watched like all these top players, like they're never getting hit by the like stuff that Andrew was hitting me with.
Hmm.
Let's see, who did I play? I played like Ranger Mike, Sleepyhead, Matthew, Cadence, some like legends of the game for CLM at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah. Those
There was
those
one
are some
guy.
legends.
There was one guy who's also first tournament it was, but I didn't get to play him. But yeah, I went off Falco. It was a ton of fun.
So you mentioned earlier, you said how Unsure was like sort of a mentor for you. How did that arise? How did that relationship arise, and what did he teach?
Yeah, so Andrew's still helping me like every day, pretty much with tournaments. I always look to him for advice. But the way it came about was when I went to the Ultimate tournament at DePaul, and I asked them to run melee tournaments. Um, we just had a CRT at DePaul. I basically ran like a local or two off of that one CRT, and the Ultimate TOs were just like, yeah, you can run melee. We'll just add it to the page and add it to the page. Um, and Andrew eventually noticed, and I think he came to one of our locals and was like, "Hey, if you want to borrow some CRTs to grow it, you can totally do that." So borrowed a couple more, and then I got a couple more. I don't remember how. Like I think I just like looked on Facebook or whatever, like drove around like the suburb that I'm from to like pick some up, and it just sort of grew a little bit. And we would never have more than like 20 people, like 16 people I think was like where it was at, and for like in the like heart of the city on a Saturday for free is like not that big, but was still like just like really cool to see it grow. And then I ran a monthly that with right when Oval started TOing with me. I don't know if you know who Oval is. I ran
Hmm.
tournaments with him for a bit. Um, and Andrew came to that. We had like a stream and everything. He helped bring like some equipment for that. and I think we impressed him just enough to for him to invite us to help him out at Hold That L.
Hmm.
And I went to Hold That L6. That was my like second or third in-person tournament. And I was like the whole time I was like, "Hey, do you need any help? Like, is there anything I can help with like cleanup wise?" And he was like, "No, no, no, don't worry about it. We just want you to have a good time." It was really really gracious of him. Um, and I think that like the dots connected where he was like, "This guy wanted to help me at this tournament. He ran his own thing for a little bit, and I'm gonna might as well like try him out." Basically for Hold That L6 or 7. So me and Oval ran doubles, pretty much the whole bracket together, and then helped with our own single stuff, like running pools and top cut and everything.
Hmm.
And we did well enough to where like Andrew called us like the next day on Sunday to debrief us, or we thought that's what we thought was happening. And he's like, "Hey, like, just want to talk about like how things went." He gave us some notes, things we could have done better, things we excelled in. And at the end of the call, he goes, "By the way, I'm gonna try to get top 100 pretty soon, so I'm gonna retire from TOing. You guys want to be the head TOs?" And then he left the call. Didn't even let us reply. And we just sat there in the call, like laughing to each other. We are like, "Holy smokes!" Like we've just been handed the keys to like a Ferrari, and we're like a toddler. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so a month later, we started running Midlane and built from there.
So when you first started the scene like back in the DePaul days, like were you ever envisioning yourself as a TO? Because I mean, looking back on it, I think a lot of TOs then are like, I want to get in to be a TO, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of TOs they start TOing out of necessity. Like there wasn't. I remember I had a night class on Wednesdays, so I couldn't even go to mid lane. Or I think I worked or something like that. And I was just like, well, I still have this Saturday local I'm going to for ultimate, but I really would rather play melee. And I'm just like, I'll just run a melee local to have somewhere where I can play. And just built into it. And I ended up liking running the tournament more than I liked playing. It was really weird. I was like, I'm not good enough to win much yet, so just losing is gonna get old eventually. But
Hmm.
I can still like sort of improve at TOing at like a almost easier rate than playing.
What did you like enjoy about that weekly scene, starting up in terms of TOing?
Yeah, it was honestly like a really easy way to get all my friends together that I met through like DePaul that also were interested in melee just together. And then we would all get in Oval's car and then he would drive us to my apartment and we would just basically hang out there until like 1 or 2 a.m. and like also play Smash there. But yeah, I don't know. It was like something fun to do to get involved with like new people. I would meet like various people who would just come to the local, like Influenza. I don't know if you know who that is, but they're a
Hmm.
Falco player from Chicago, um, who's been like around like way before I have. Um, a lot of my friends that I met through other DePaul sports stuff, um, like also got into melee like at the local because at the DePaul local because it's free to enter, so there's like zero stakes. You can just come and play like for fun. So like my friend Nato, who people probably don't know, but super fun guy, super cool guy. He comes to like mid lane pretty often now. Just super good friend of mine, and just cut his teeth in like the DePaul bracket. So just like a community outlet sort of thing. It was like really rewarding for me.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Like I helped like at the University of Montana Smash Club where I did my undergrad, and now I'm helping at the University of Michigan Smash Club where I'm doing my graduate work. And I just feel just the importance of those collegiate scenes, especially the weekly collegiate scenes, is like it can't be overstated, because I guess a question that I ask you is like, how did that help develop you into the person that you are today, doing that type of stuff in your undergrad and college?
Yeah, I think it's very similar. That's super important. And I actually looked like once Unsure went to the local, I could sort of tell that he like knew what he was talking about when he would give me like advice for TOing. Because I'd only met him like 2 or 3 times, right? Like Holt that L and like the two Midlands that I'd been to. Um, and I looked up like basically I looked up a bit about him, just to, like understand where he's coming from. And seeing that he ran the DePaul local before me, but like 4 years prior in like 2017, 18, and this is like 2021. So I guess not that long, but there's like a gap where there was no melee, and he was the guy before me, him and Fluid. So I was like, yeah, I definitely want to like carry this torch for a little bit while I'm here. And we got like 2 good years out of it. But yeah, it's super rewarding to like provide a space for people to like get involved with melee for the first time, and like mid lane I guess now can be like pretty intimidating. We have like a lot of really like strong players. um like a bunch of the PR goes there, so for like a basically new player focused local where you can also have like a top player if they just like appear randomly, was super cool. It also like wasn't PR eligible, so there was no reason for them to go. So it was just like new people mostly.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for maybe someone newer in their scene, or maybe someone who wants to either help out or even start their own scene like you did in DePaul, how to integrate themselves within the collegiate space?
Yeah, so if you're at a college and there's like an ultimate scene, which there is at like a lot of colleges, or even like if there's like people in like your dorm, if you're dorming, that are like running like items on like ultimate tournaments, or like anything, right? Even if there is a melee group, like just shoot them a message like on whatever social media they have, probably Instagram now, and like or like just go to the event and be like, hey, how did you get this going? Ask them like because some schools you need like a university supervisor to like do anything with, which is really cool. And yeah, just like if you melee setups are pretty cheap. Like a Wii, I think I bought like 5 Wii's recently for like $25 each at like a thrift store. Like not too bad. CRTs you can get for free sometimes, or like pretty cheap as well. So um, yeah, it's just like just contact whoever is organizing anything near you, be it collegiate or otherwise. And they're probably going to be open to like have a conversation with you about it. Um, and it's pretty easy to like get involved, so, like volunteering or doing your own thing.
That's awesome. Always great advice there. I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, as you were talking about how unsure, helped you not necessarily like rise up the ranks, but have more of a workload as a TO, going from that DePaul weekly to more of the CLM things and hold that L. What were some of the lessons that you think you had to learn as a TO while going up that?
So I think like logistics are a big thing. So um, preparation, I think it's like the number one thing for setting yourself up for success for an event. Um, Running even like a local, I think like having a sort of schedule out for when you're going to have seating done by, messaging players to like get decent attendance if that's something you're focused on. Like preparation is like preparation is just the key to success when TOing, I think. And then also another thing that's like a little more specific, but if you have like problem players, not necessarily like controversial players or like players who are being like rude or like problematic, but problem players in that like they walk away from their pool and like are borderline DQable. Stuff like that, like putting those players on your radar, like almost keeping like track of like mentally who you need to like pay extra attention to get your tournament to run quickly or efficiently. And that's another thing. Efficiency is also huge because you don't want people to be waiting like 20 minutes or 30 minutes per set if they don't have to. You want to have people like, uh, you don't want people to be bored in your venue, just sitting there waiting. So there's a lot of things that go into it. We've talked about like attendee experience a lot, trying to like maximize value as well. Like that's why we run like our funky format at Midlane. We're like round robin into two different brackets, gold and silver. So like everybody gets good value for what they want. Like the top players, it's basically DE because if you lose twice, you're out of pools, and you go into silver. And then for like the newer players, you get this redemption bracket after your like 4 or 5 sets in pools to um, basically redeem yourself and get like your entry back if you win the whole bracket. It's like a single thing. It's this kind of big ass gauntlet that you run through. Um, but yeah, just like yeah, efficiency, logistics, preparation, um, marketing as well is like a huge thing Andrew's talked to me about. Helping like with branding of the tournament. I am obsessed with the hold that out branding. it is the perfect branding of a tournament
It's great.
because the L is what we call the transit system in Chicago for the train. It's called the L. And you take the L to get to hold that L, and then you lose that hold that L, and you hold the L. It's so perfect. And he like remade the CTA logo with HDL, like so. I'm trying to like I guess like also the quality of his events as well. We're sort of just like inspiring, so I'm trying to like chase that sort of, but in my own way.
Hmm. Well, so let's get into what you're doing now. Like, describe the roles that you have. You have many hats now as a TO, and still show up. You're at the Arcadian. Shout out Michigan
Mhm.
Arcadian, which was lit. Shout out Coin. Um, like describe like what's your role in CLM right now?
Yeah, so currently I'm the head TO for tournaments that are in the city. There's TPS, which is like an hour and a half away in the suburbs. That tournament's great. I have a lot of fun when I go there. But I do all the city stuff, so pretty much just Midlane Melee, which is like the main local on Wednesdays, and then Out of the Blue, which is our regional series. And then any other events that we're planning in between there. So like we scheduled like a get together for like a Cubs game, like a baseball outing, or like any other things like that. Like I work at Combo Breaker now. I just had like my sort of like staff onboarding meeting like last week because they're trying to like involve more like Chicago TO talent. So I was like right up their alley. Um, I also, since Unsure is the head melee TO at Riptide, I'm now like his sort of assistant TO at that, along with Coin as well, who you're very familiar with. Um, but yeah, I just run things in Chicago now, help out at events where I can that I am going to, that sort of thing.
That's awesome. I want to talk about mid lane a little bit. As a fan of melee, I'll be watching and I just seen how that local has grown under your control. And I
Mhm.
wonder what were some of the things that you did specifically for mid lane in order to make it. You touched on that bracket, which I think is a really really cool idea. I think that's something that locals and maybe even regionals can help introduce a little bit. I think Coin's doing some of that work as well. What were some of the things specifically that is making mid lane what it is today?
Yeah, so um, definitely the format and the venue. The venue is super easy to get to. It's on the blue line, which is like the one of the main lines in the CTA. Like if you get off the blue line at Logan Square on like the north end, you cannot miss Midlane Esports. It is like right next to the like it is across the street. You'll see it no matter what. So easy access venue. The tournament lasts like a pretty long time. It lasts from like the venue opens at 6, closes at 11. Um, lots of setups. The format is like good, and it's good for I think almost every type of player that is entering mid lane. So your top players, excuse me, um, your top players have basically double elim, which is what they want. They just want to play their bracket, play their PR players, and win or lose, right? But they still have to play all the mid and low level players to get there. And that goes for the mid and low level players. The mid level players, they get the chance to beat their PR players. They're guaranteed sets against basically PR players every week. And then also have to prove that they're better than the lower seeds in pools. And the low seeds get matches amongst themselves. So usually it's like two lower seeds in a pool, two mid seeds, and then like one or two high seeds. Um, and it's sort of like it just provides value for everybody. And then the gold and silver brackets, as I touched on earlier. And then also like I have a decent amount of setups. I have like 11 to 12 are setups like every week. And then the venue is also super welcoming. Like it's a bar and gaming center. So half of the venue, it's like an L shape. So I'll just show my finger. So like this side is all the gaming, like it's all esports, and then this side where my thumb is just a bar. And then the in-between space is just an area for like there's couches and tables for you to just hang out with. We've had people that are bringing in CRTs now. So like the community itself is helping a ton, just making it better by bringing in like their own setups for friendlies like the whole night. And it's pretty much like from 6 p.m. to whenever I yell that I need to go home. That it's just like gaming nonstop. I don't know. It's a really warm environment, I think.
And what days are this on? If there's anyone around that want to go.
Yeah, it's Wednesdays at 6 p.m. It's just start.gg/midlane, Midlane. Um, Yeah, it's great. The area is also really cool too. Logan Square is this sort of strip on Milwaukee Avenue where there's like a ton of cool restaurants. Shout out to Mr. E's Late Night. That place is the goated spot for like the Midlane attendees. There's like a parody account of that like they're there's like a parody Twitter account of Mr. E's that like tweets about Midlane sometimes, which is cool. Yeah, just like I think there's parts of the event have like a cult following at this point, and that's one of them. So it was like the bartender Bonnie, who like is just giving people free Malort shots every week.
Oh God.
That's like a Chicago staple. So yeah,
Malort is crazy. I try to have some of that, man.
jet
Oh
fuel.
my goodness. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, you touched on something that I think is important, especially in the local scene, which is community. What do you think are some of the things that Midlane does in order to build that community that you have at CLM now?
So I've noticed that a lot of people at various skill levels, they play in bracket like often, right? Like the low seeds are going to play each other in like round one of silver bracket, and they play often, and often enough to just start becoming friends. So, for example, there's like a new player, he's a Dr. Mario player, Mandorsh. Um, he's improving definitely, but still like a lower level player. And so is there's a couple other players of similar skill. But I mentioned Mandorsh because he's like just a very welcoming guy, and is always like, hey, you want to play? Want to play friendlies with like anybody in the venue. And this is sort of seen in like most of the people that go to mid lane. But the reason I mentioned the different skill levels because there's two players like Gerby and Brendan. They're two like they're a Sheik and a Falco who are like top four, top eighting silver bracket every week. And those guys have started grinding together. Same thing with like Influenza, Goose 447, like all these players who like you probably never heard of, but for me they're like super integral to the community because they are inviting other players in and to just like join them for friendlies and like whenever there's a new player at mid lane, like the format is wonky. So these are players where I'll basically be like, "Hey, Jackson, Ashley, could you guys explain the format to them?" And they're super like gracious and welcoming to them, almost like an extension of me just by like being friendly and trying to like invite people to enjoy the event more. So I think that's super key to like the community aspect of mid lane.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think like it's so important not only for growth but for retention as well when people like they want to have an environment where like you said, you can go and make friends, you can find new training partners. So shout out to you for providing that.
Mhm.
What do you think are some of the things that you have learned and gained as, the years have gone by and you running mid lane? Um, not only
Yeah,
in melee but outside as well.
I think definitely like how to be more organized in general. I was like a crazy disorganized person going into college. Um, and now like there's not really an option for me to be disorganized because the event will suffer if I am like disorganized. Um, so yeah, I think time management is like a huge thing that I've been like sort of forced to improve on, but I'm super glad for it. So yeah, stuff like that. I guess just like here's a little bit of a customer service aspect to TOing. Um, so like learning how to like be patient with people who are like frustrated, whether they just lost and are complaining to you, or forgot to sign up and they show up to the venue and are like, "Hey, I'm a PR player. Can I enter?" I'm like, "No, that would mess up all the seating." Um, like stuff like that. Yeah, I think just like also like just being an adult in the city. Like this was mid lane was one of the first things I did when I moved to the city and like really didn't know anybody. And since it was really welcoming to me, like I try and repeat that. And just like learning how to interact with people, just like from all walks of life, like to help them have a good time, like is been like super like eye opening to me.
Super interesting. What do you think are some of the future plans for mid lane? Are you happy with where it's at right now? Do you want to keep it stable or do you want to try to grow it, change something? What are your thoughts?
My like immediate goal is to beat like our attendance record. So mid lane melee 64, which was like over a year ago, we capped. It literally capped, and it only capped because I forgot that there was a cap on the event. Like on StartGG, we would have had more than 64 entrants, but that's just the way it was. And we've gotten close a couple times, but recently we got really close. So this is just like a little stupid goal of mine where it's like, oh, I kind of want to do it again. Um, but we just like rebranded like our Start GG. We like revamped all like the logo and the banner and all the stream stuff. Shout outs to Matt Popa who did all that. Um, so immediately just like sort of keeping like I just want to keep it steady. Like I like where it's at right now. We have like a pretty good group of people. We've like I think somebody in the Melee Stats Discord recently like they like tallied like the average number of attendees for like every local. And we were like in the top 5 over the last like month and a half, which is really cool because this is something that just sort of like happened. People just like going there. So just like keeping up the standard of like the event that people have sort of come to be accustomed to. So I need to buy like more speakers to replace ones that are sort of breaking. Like we use monitors, so I need to buy some new adapters. But yeah, just keeping things the same is like my goal. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's funny that you mentioned branding and stuff like that. I feel like back in the day, our locals was some guy would post it on a Facebook message page, and then people would show up. There'd be one guy running it on challenge, and that would be that. Now there's so
Yeah.
many more moving parts to a local and to a regional. I feel like it allows people to join the scene who might not be like the number one thing is competing, so it allows people who are talented in things like branding and things like streaming, for example, electronics, man, stuff breaks, especially if you're
Hmm.
doing monitors and stuff. Like
Yeah.
if someone is interested in helping you out, what do you think are some of the ways like to approach you, not necessarily you, but just like as like a TO, like what would be some of the do's and don'ts?
Yeah. Well, for me, like I'm in the middle of the room every week at Midlane. Like if you walk in, you see somebody at the laptop, it's probably me, and it's probably going to be the same for every event. Like if there's somebody at a laptop, it's probably the TO, and if it's not, then they probably know the TO because they know where the laptop is. So just like asking people, like genuinely, people are really welcoming, at least in my experience at locals. And if they're not welcoming at locals, then they shouldn't be going. Like it's whack to just be weird and just in your own world at locals, I think. But um, yeah, just talking to people, just being friendly and sort of explaining like you want to start commentating or you're interested in helping with stream. Like recently we've Belt in Chicago who I think he commentated his first major at Riptide 2023. And he's awesome. He's an incredible commentator and just like comes to mid lane to just to commentate. Like the whole night he just sits down, locks in and commentates the whole bracket. Or like 3XO is another example of that. Didn't really commentate until like 2022, and then he just started randomly and has done pretty well. Um, there's a couple players, Ram Jam and Find That Yeti. They are media guys. They just have these incredible cameras and are just do so much good work with them. They just offered at Big House to come to Out of the Blue and just do media, like just to film, take pictures, all that and they started doing that at Midlane. Now they're doing it at Combo Breaker and other events. Um, like if you just have something you're interested in and want to help out with, and you think could contribute to the event or community, like the TO, I guarantee you, is open to at least hearing you out, even if it doesn't pan out, and probably also is interested in helping you find somewhere else to apply that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just think it's so great that people are finding their niche in melee and just helping the scene be better. I want to do a
Hmm.
little bit of a sidebar though. You mentioned commentary. I feel like commentary is always a hot topic, and I want to get the perspective of TOs. What is your stance on commentary? What do you think are some of your commentary pet peeves? Do you feel like it's an addition or a subtraction to the scene?
I think it's definitely an addition because, like we mentioned earlier with the Evo thing, I probably am not going to be invested in Melee as much if Scar doesn't freak out about S2J unnecessarily down airing him, like stomping him, or stomping West balls. Like that made it for me. Like it was like this is cool already. Like he's just like dunking this guy literally. But it's also crazy because now I understand why this is important. It's like unnecessary and it's just him being stylish basically. on like this insane stage. So I think it's super important to basically commentators, they provide energy to the broadcast. Sometimes like the energy isn't needed. Like I don't know, like crazy sets. Like I don't know. Anytime Mango and Moki play, like they're gonna be going crazy, like no matter what. The commentary just adds to it. And the same goes for like sets that maybe it's just like a top player and they're round one opponent, and you just have them on because like oh it's Mango, we might as well put him on. Like the commentator might be on PG stats looking up this new player that they never heard of and sort of like explaining about them and talking about Mango and like his return to like competing seriously, stuff like that. So I think it's definitely important. I do think though, I got yelled at one time for commentating a tournament where I had my phone just on the desk on PG stats because I didn't know one of the players and I was like, I want to look them up, see who they beat and see who they lost to, who's in the region, and they were like, "Get off your phone." I'm like, "What? This is just providing value." But anyway, that's a little sidetrack.
I feel you on that. Let's touch on out of the blue. I've only heard. I haven't been to one. I think I'm gonna try my best to go to the next one.
Yes.
So you can plug it if you want. Go ahead, plug it. Go ahead, plug
Yes,
it.
dude. So out of the blue, is especially this third one, I'm really trying to like make it bigger. Is sort of my magnum opus so far as like TOing goes. It's my regional series. It's in Chicago. It's right in Lincoln Park. And it's like gorgeous area at DePaul University. Um, I don't know. It is just like a blast to run to like I think I've heard like a couple complaints about there being too much melee out of the blue, and I don't know how that's an issue because
Yeah.
like you can play melee all day. I think I had like more setups than Gommel had in their main ballroom like
Wow.
last year. I think I had like 57 at one point. Um, yeah, I'm so proud of how it's grown and like Chicago has been super passionate about it. We have people telling people to register like at every event now. It's sort of like this like Midwest almost celebration of Midwest Melee, I think, because you get a ton of Minnesota, a ton of Wisconsin, a bunch of Indiana, a ton of Michigan as well. Like I think you guys had like two or three cards last time. Some Ohio people come. St. Louis is slowly beginning to jump into it. Yeah, it's just the regional series that I run. It's start.gg/blue. We have a bunch of crazy players going. We've what do we have? We have Josh Man, Zamu, Ossify, KJH, Ben, Skurzo's flying from Japan to go to the event,
Oh, that's
Moth,
sick.
Lowercase Hero, like a bunch of these top players as well. The stream is going to be super sick. It's going to be on Beyond the Summit this time. Ravian's producing it. But yeah, that's my shilling. That's my shilling time done.
Absolutely. Give us
I
a
could show
date. You forgot
for
the date though.
it's June 8th. June
June
8th.
8th. June
I
8th.
oh, that's an important thing too. June 8th is the day before my last final is due for college, and after that I'm graduating. So, as a graduation gift, you should all come to Out of the Blue in Chicago, June 8th.
Well, I'll do a little plug as well. I didn't go to the last one, but a bunch of the Michigan homies, like you said, did, and everyone came back with glowing reviews. They said it was super fun. There was so much melee to be played there. Everyone was
Yeah,
chill.
yeah.
So yeah, really cool. And the production, I watched the stream. The production was fantastic. Was it Ravian again?
Yeah,
Yeah, Ravian's the
Ravian
best. Yeah,
just destroys every time. He's so sick with it.
that's awesome.
He's gonna turn up the volume on this part of the video.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be like probably some promotional things on the side.
When he
Ravian,
edits it,
Ravian,
yeah,
yeah.
Ravian.
So for those who don't know, Ravian's the editor of this
hmm
podcast as well. You talked about a little bit about how it grew over the years to this iteration. Tell us like how did it grow and what were some of the things that you wanted to implement into this new one?
Yeah, so the way we started was we ran an Arcadian just to see if me and Oval at the time could handle running a regional style event. And it's called the Blue Demon Arcadian because DePaul Blue Demons. And it was this round robin event. We had just enough people to do like 6 and 7 person pools. So top two make it to winner side bracket, bottom two make it middle two, like third and fourth make it to like loser side, and then everybody else goes to ladder. Um, and that went super well, went pretty well. And the university also enjoyed it, like enjoyed having us. So they said, whenever you want to run another one, go for it if the date's available. Um, and we also had what Andrew did, what I'm sure did at his Arcadian, which was called master classes, where we like brought top players to basically teach people on a side stream. We did live VOD reviews, so we had Slippy setups where you could just go up, yoink the USB out of the Wii, and then plug it into a computer and do live VOD review. I think Ober did live VOD review with a Falco player or a Fox player or something like that. But that was also to build rapport with these top players. Like Slowking, I think, came as well. And then he sort of spoke our praises, like I'm sure to Iowa. Like that guy's super positive about all our events.
Hmm.
And then we were like, let's take it one step further. We want to run a regional because there's no regionals in Chicago because Hold That L is on hiatus until whenever it comes back, if it comes back, right? I can't leak too much. And yeah, we just came up with names. We were like, we want to do something DePaul related, but something where we can run it outside of DePaul. And I remember I literally like we were writing names down for an hour on like a notepad, and I was just like, out of the blue, like randomly in my like room, just like out of the blue. That's the name. Um, yeah, we ran the first one. We figured we could get like Ginger and the Michigan people to go because Ginger went to Hold That L. We had the relationship through Unsure. And he loved it, even though he played like 16 sets to win the tournament. We had like I've called them suicide pools at this point, where it's like 10-person round robin. I had like 90 minutes to run this. I have no idea how I did it, but I did. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It went super well. We finished like an hour ahead of schedule, and people enjoyed it, had fun. And then the second one, we decided to do doubles instead of round robin. So it was doubles, and then just a normal DE bracket. We did some flex stuff, which I think I'm never going to do again. But people also enjoyed that tournament. We had like at some point we probably had like over 200 people in the room. There was 175 people in the bracket. It's like the biggest bracket that I've ever ran. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's just been like a project that I've loved, like just pouring my heart into. I do like a lot of the graphics. All like the advertising now at this point is like mine. Except for Rami and Yeti made a trailer recently, which was fantastic. Um, yeah, it's just grown naturally as we are in Chicago and more people start to hear about it. It's sort of just snowballed into this point where like we're able to fly players out, which is super cool.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so sick. Describe to me, some of the challenges that a TO needs to be prepared going from running a pretty big local to running a pretty big regional like that.
Yeah, so the main difference is you need a lot of setups and you also need staff. Like I said earlier, preparation is the key to success, and filling your living room with 30 or so CRTs is just sort of a consequence of that. I have a picture somewhere. I can probably send it if you want. Of my living room for the first out of the blue, and it is literally just oh no, it's the second one. It's the couch has all of Ravian's stream equipment, and then the living room is just like CRTs everywhere, and then a stack of like 20 or so Wii's that I had to update. But it's all worth it because like after that, I'm just going to give the CRTs back to whoever they go to. The ones that I have, I just like stack in my living room. They don't take up any space, like stuff like that. So just be prepared to like there is going to be a little bit of chaos, but you've got to control it. That's sort of where like that time management and sort of like logistics come in that I talked about earlier. Um, but having a goal in mind is super important when preparing for regional. So for me, I talked about it the last one. I have like this hard cutoff of my venue of like a time where I have to be gone. Like it's not that the event has to be over. I have to be gone. The room has to be as it was when we walked in by this time. And I pretty much work backwards from that, thinking about the schedule, when certain parts of the bracket need to start, when doubles needs to start, stream, everything. So I'm waking up on out of the blue days. I'm waking up probably at 5 a.m. Trying to get outside the venue by 8-ish a.m. because it opens at 9 a.m. and then starting the tournament at 10. Just like doing as much prep on the day of and previous as possible. Um, and then I mentioned staff as well. Sorry, this is like a super long answer, but
No,
there's a
this is
lot that goes
great.
into it.
This is great.
Staff as well. Inviting people in your community who have expressed interest in helping out in any capacity to do that, or people you are friendly with. So like Influenza, Goose, NATO, who I all mentioned as my friends. They all have like their own role in the tournament. So in like running pools or helping with setup and tear down, or like Oval who helps. Oval has since retired from TOing locals, but he still comes and assists me at these regionals, and he has a car, so he'll show up to my apartment at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and we'll fill his car with CRTs and basically do laps around the city because it's like a 5-minute drive to the venue for me. Just like putting all the TVs outside the venue and having someone stay there and like guarding them. Yeah, just like basically having a plan of how you're going to accomplish each goal of your day for your regional. So like setup, we want X amount of TVs that we have ourselves in my apartment. They need to be outside of the student center at this time. Venue opens at this time. We're gonna bring them in. We're gonna have 3 people, 4 people, 5 people carrying CRTs, carrying stream equipment Arabian. They're gonna be the CRTs are gonna be set up by this time. The bracket is gonna start at this time. It's predicted to run until this another point, right? But then I have other staff for if it runs over. So doubles are the last one. I think there was like a bracket reset. I think Smash Poppy and Shango lost early and then won the tournament, and we had to account for that. So we had Q, who some people might know as the Dr. Mario Goat.
Go.
Um, he would just like took it upon himself. He's like, "Hey, not playing in bracket until wave B. I've been helping with doubles so far. Go run singles. I'll do doubles." Stuff like that, like just preparing yourself with like enough equipment that you cannot fail, and also the right people. Um, the same thing happens with coin tournaments as well. Like she has great people working with her at every event that are willing to like go the extra mile. So just like having people that are invested is like also pretty huge.
I want to talk about the mental aspect of TOing. I feel like a lot of things are said about the mental aspect of competition and how to deal with the nerves and the stress. How, I feel like TOing is very similar. I mean, you're putting months and months of hard work into one day that you hope goes well. You're putting your reputation on the line and a lot of people's days on the line, right? If it goes bad, a
Yeah,
lot of people are not going to be happy. How do you deal
yeah,
with that anxiety, with that stress, and do you feel like there are some tips that you could give TOs who deal with that as well?
yeah. I think I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but like if you do enough preparation, like you are gonna be so set up for success that it's gonna be kind of hard to fail. But you do, especially at regionals, where a lot of the time you are on like a bit of a time crunch, you do just have to like realize that you have the ability as a TO, if you're already TOing anything really, and you've TO'd it for a little bit, like going like that to that next step, to like bump up from like a big local to a regional or something like that, you probably have the ability to literally just like lock in and like focus entirely 100% on the local. Like when I'm at mid lane, like I'm still like answering work texts probably at some point, but like at these regionals, like that's it. That's the only thing that's going on. Like my phone is off. Like I don't check it at all. Um, but yeah, I think just yeah, just like thinking about the anxiety of it, of like, yeah, you're like other people's day is on the line and so is yours. That is something that's important to think about. Like you want to focus on providing them the best experience they can have and trying to make everybody enjoy it. It's probably impossible to do that. Like some players, they're gonna get upset in bracket. Like they're gonna be late, they might get DQ'd, right? But providing other things for them to do if that happens is pretty important, like having a controller booth or like a ton of friendlies, ladder, that sort of thing, and genuinely like just setting goals for yourself. They can be pretty lofty, but as long as they are like definitely achievable, then I think then that's like another key to handling the anxiety of it. Recently at mid lane, like I've been trying to focus on running the bracket just faster because I open at work on Thursday mornings, so I gotta wake up and pretty much wake up, shower, go to work. That's like the thing with mid lane, like the day after. But I'm getting home at like 11:30 midnight, so it's pretty rough. But that is like the only anxiety I have for myself because at this point the event has ran well enough up until this point where if we have like one that sort of struggles, I'm not too worried about it. It's not going to be the end of the world. Whereas like regionals, it might be. Um, so same thing, preparation for regionals is way more important than mid lane. But um, just realize that like if you're TOing anything in any capacity, like you are fully capable of going that next step up, just as long as you prepare. Asking for advice as well is like super huge. Like anybody who wants the TO or has any questions about TO, you feel free to DM me about that. I'm sure unsure as well. Like if you wanted to talk to him about it, as long as you're someone involved in the community already, he's probably down. Because like that's how I found success in TOing. It's like by making mistakes at like these locals, like DePaul locals, or like at the monthlies that we ran, or mid lane, and being like, "Hey Andrew, what can I do to make this better?" Even at the events that went well, like after Out of the Blue 2, I was like, man, that went really well, but I can improve on this. And Andrew the next morning was like, get your head out of your ass, man. The event went well. Because I was like sulking about like one or two little things that were a problem, and nobody knows about them. And I was like, I don't even remember them now. But at the time, I was like, oh, I could have done this better. It's like also enjoying your event as well as a TO is really important. You don't want to get caught up in the stress of it. Yeah, it's stressful to run tournaments, especially when you have like players in your region that are hard to work with, like that either show up late, leave their pools, are any sort of problematic, like are just leaving for the bathroom, right? Like, um, understand that like you're gonna work through it. You'll eventually find a solution to it, and in the end of the day, like you'll find a way to like run the event and finish it.
Do you have any like things like TO pet peeves that really just like, dude, what are you doing? And how do you deal
Oh
with that
yeah.
frustration when in an
Oh
already
yeah.
stressful environment?
um, so I run a tournament at a bar. If you're in round robin pools and you have people to play and there's someone you know to play, play them. Do not go and get a drink or something like that. Like that is total nonsense, man. Like just play your pool. It makes my life so much easier. It's not even that it makes it so much easier. It just makes it way harder if you just leave and I don't know. If you are gonna go get a drink, just tell me. I'll be like, okay, cool. Be like back in 5 minutes. So not communicating with your TO is the worst thing ever. A couple weeks ago, we had a player who super good about like reporting all his sets in pools, and then he just left for silver bracket. He just like didn't want to play silver bracket, and I didn't know this, so I waited like 15 minutes, and I'm still calling his tag. I'm like, all right, last call for whoever. But it like delayed the bracket a little bit. I still like caught up because like Midlane has a lot of spaces, or whatever. It sort of helps. But yeah, smurfing is super cringe. We've had to deal with that a little bit. I'm not going to get into that, but I think smurfing's super cringe. Um, yeah, just being like unnecessarily rude or taking like just people being inconsiderate, like inconsiderate attendees. Like, dude, we're all people. We all want to like enjoy this event. Like, not everything is about you. Like, people, I think main character syndrome is like a huge issue for attendees.
Mhm.
This is all attendee issues. For TOing, I think breaks are really bad. Like, if you have an event where you have the luxury to have a break in your bracket, why not just run the event and continue to run it so you can go home earlier? Because like you don't want to be at your venue until 1 a.m., right? And like packing up CRTs and stuff like that, like at 1 a.m. So yeah, that's a huge issue. Um, with round robin events, I've seen a couple events that do three people make it out. That is like sadistic. Don't ever do that. That makes tiebreakers like crazy, and it also like gives you like really weird top cut amounts. Something that even I've learned, it's like I think I ran a tournament that was like top 48 make it out. Don't do top 48. Just do like an even number, 64, 128 if you're like if you have it like that, 32. Um, I don't know, like little things like that. Like formatting is pretty important. Yeah, just stuff like that. I'm sure I've complained about other things before that are to me right now like I can't think of, but yeah.
I want to touch on a subject. Like you're talking about inconsiderate players, players who smurf, players who are just overall not doing the things necessary to grow the environment, right?
Yeah.
When does that get to a point where you have to take them aside and say, hey, you're going to have to take a ban for a week or for a month? And do you feel like, especially with these some players who are more widely known, do you feel like they get a longer leash? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
They definitely get a longer leash if it is like a player that I sort of know is uh like if they're a top player, they already sort of get a little TPP just like naturally because they're probably decently communicative just by being at the local every week. That I'll give you like a little bit of leeway for as long as you're communicating with me. Um, but I think consistency is a big thing. Like if I know a player is like often going to be 5 minutes, pretty much exactly late, which happens pretty often at mid lane, I'll give him that one because usually it's sort of like we have enough people per pool where, excuse me, delaying one player starting is like okay, but at some point I have to like bring the hammer down and be like, okay, this is a little bit absurd. We had an incident recently. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say why, But I had to like get on this player as like this is absurd. Like you showing up late is not okay. Like acting like you don't know certain things about the bracket. Like when you're here every week and you check your own pools. Like don't don't bullshit me type of deal. Think that's not okay. But honestly, we haven't had that many issues in Chicago. Like everybody here is great. Everybody like wants the tournament to go well. They just want to have a good time, like vibe. Like once they're done, like go get a drink or whatever. So I think that's like not really an issue here, but they definitely get a little more leeway if they're well known. But even at that point, like I'm willing to give like a new player who, hey, like I'm really trying to make it. If they tell me like they're late and if they're down to like show me a picture of their GPS, like this is the thing that Unsure told me to do. This is like actually good advice that Unsure told me to do. Where he used to ask people like send me a screenshot of Google Maps. Like if you're lying about how long you're gonna be. Like we had an issue one time where there was a player who would show up late pretty often, and he'd be like, "Yeah, 5 minutes, I'm just parking," and then 20 minutes later, he's not here yet, and I've already delayed the tournament enough to wait for him, right? So at that point, I'm just gonna DQ him because like you just can't don't lie to me. But yeah, I'm very fortunate to have like a scene where people are really communicative and like pretty honest about their situation. Like, oh, the metro's slow, blue line, CTA has issues all the time, so I'm willing to give people like a little bit of leeway, but there is definitely a point where you have to hit the DQ button.
Yeah, definitely. I feel you. I want to touch on Riptide because as a attendee, I thought it was a fantastically run tournament, and you helped run it. Was that your first major that you helped in that capacity? And if so, how was that experience for you?
Sort of. I like wasn't on staff at Gommel, but I did a lot at Gommel that I didn't know I was gonna do going into the weekend, which is sort of like a trend of tournaments that I go to. I will be like, "Hey, are there any gaps to fill?" And then I fill several gaps. Like I was like the stream runner for Gommel, and then I ran doubles with Mangachu, the former Overwatch pro. Which is like
Hmm.
crazy that he plays Melee now. That guy's awesome. Yeah, Riptide was definitely the first event where I was like definite like official staff member in that capacity where I was like running the bracket with Unsure rather than like doing things for people, which is really cool. Like I've pool captained every major I've gone to and stuff like that, and like have had like senior volunteer roles before, but I was definitely the first staff one. I'm really happy that it turned out well as well. I was pretty nervous.
Yeah. What were you nervous about? Just like the size or like just the new venue, like the new area for
Sort of.
you or
No, because the year before I wasn't able to get on staff. I got basically added too late for Repair 2022, and I had like a similar job, but in like a less important capacity. Like I was not like an official TO, but I was still like running pools and like helping stream on a little bit and like assisting Unsure. Whereas this time it was like a more full role. Like you are gonna have an autonomous part of the bracket, like running around checking with pool captains the whole time running part of round two pools, doing XYZ thing. That is a lot more like for me to do rather than like anybody can run a pool or do smaller tasks. So like on I think Thursday we had to like run to Staples and like print all the brackets. Like me and Contra had to like go to Staples and like get a bunch of equipment, like just like little like so like post-it notes and like Sharpies and everything like stuff like that. But yeah, I think just like my reputation is on the line a little bit more at Riptide now because like I work there, and I represent the event a lot more, and like I just want people to have fun at it because I know how cool it is. As like from being an attendee in 2022. So yeah, I don't know. I think also just like it being my first like major and like the word major gets thrown around. It's like, whoa, you're working in a major now. That like got to me a little bit, but once the event started, I was like totally fine. It's like oh, it's just another tournament.
hmm do you feel like do you want to grow as a TO to the point where you're being a head TO at a major? Do you want to bring a major to Chicago? What are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. So the deal right now is that we're waiting for Unsure to get top 100. It's not an if, it's a when.
Hmm.
Whether it happens this year or next year, I think it's going to be one of the two. After that, we're going to start really focusing on bringing a major to the city. This might be leaking. Sorry, Andrew, if this is too much, but I don't care. Like people know. He's talked about it before, I think. But yeah, we definitely want to like bring a lot more to the city because like it's the like what is it like the third most highest population city in like the country. Like it deserves a major, and the community does as well. The community's so great, um, that I think it would be like a super welcoming city. But yeah, I think that's our goal. I just want to run regionals as well as I can as well. So I think like I will still continue to run regionals no matter what. I think as long as I can get a venue and a date that isn't ran over other events that have ran over me
Yeah.
2 times in a row. I'm so mad about that still. Um,
That's lame.
but
That's lame.
um, but I yeah, just like I would love to grow the scene in Chicago just because the people here deserve it.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into some of the stuff outside of Melee. You said that you're about to graduate this year. This is your last
Mm.
semester. What are you studying, man?
So yeah, I'm actually a marketing major at DePaul. In my final quarter, we have like a weird 3 quarter and then summer quarter system here. I don't really like it, but it is what it is. Yeah, I've been studying that since 2020.
It's funny you say that because I feel like the branding and marketing of your tournaments is on point. So it sort of makes sense that you know what's up. Is that something that interests you, marketing, like from high school, or like where did you say that I want to be in marketing?
Yeah, so I actually now that I've like done events, I actually don't really want to go into marketing, but so I did not really know what I wanted to do out of high school, but I knew that I wanted to go to college, and the way that people would explain it to me was like this probably is not true in truth, but they basically said that I should have a major going in. So the goal was to pick something that was like applicable, somewhat social, which marketing is like at least in a somewhat psychology aspect. Because I wanted something that was also hireable to have a job out of college, and was like pretty sure I was going to go to DePaul just because I really liked the campus and like the setting basically. And I had like opportunity for working there as well, like which I didn't really know about, but it was sort of like hinted at with my involvement in the esports program. Um, so picking like marketing, so to get a business degree at DePaul is like really hireable in Chicago. Um, and marketing is like very applicable. Like you're always going to have marketing jobs, so just stuff like that. And then yeah, that's what I figured. Like I didn't want to go into accounting. I didn't want to do like finance. Like I didn't want to do like business administration. Probably could have done management, but I think like a management job is like a little too specialized. A management degree, sorry, is too specialized. So marketing sort of like checked all the boxes and was still like not as I think rigid and like there's like the sort of like term like the finance bro. Like I didn't want to be a finance bro. So
Yeah.
marketing was like the furthest away from that I could get. While still being in like the business school.
And you said out of the blue is the day before the day out. It has to be the day
It's the day
the
before
day before.
actually.
Oh,
So it's a
okay.
Saturday and then Sunday I have like all my stuff is due on Sunday.
Hmm.
And then I graduate the next Sunday.
That's sick. Congratulations, homie. Great
Yeah.
job.
Thank
Great
you.
work.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
super excited about it.
that's awesome. Do you feel like
Um,
you're gonna stay in the Chicago area then afterwards?
100%.
Yeah.
Yep. I couldn't leave Chicagoland. I already have plans to like move as soon as I graduate. Like I'm just moving like with a bunch of melee players who like already have an apartment and they have an opening.
That's sick, dude. Well, I hope that works out as well. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's talk about maybe some of your interests outside. So when you're not, repping CLM, Melee, and TOing, what are you doing to chill out?
Yeah, so we mentioned that I used to play Call of Duty, but
Hmm.
actually the thing that I really cut my teeth in competitively was Valorant. I played for the DePaul Valorant team from 2021 until the end of 2023 when
Wow.
just school and CLM and work got like a little more serious. So now I coach them. I'm
Wow.
not
Okay.
like a crazy player. I'm not like professional level, but since I had like experience being on a team for so long, they wanted that. So I just helped them out, like manage them, help them set up scrims, coach them, um, stuff like that. It's a ton of fun. Like those guys are super enthusiastic about just like showing up every day and like being a team. And like that's super inspiring. So I do that. I am like a huge Cubs fan. Like so I live pretty close, so I try and go to a game every couple of months. I'm going to one on Tuesday actually, which I'm excited about. So yeah, I'm watching the Cubs games pretty often. Um, I haven't gone to recently, but I have like the typical melee hobby of rock climbing. NATO got me into that,
Yeah.
so I've been rock climbing. I might go tonight actually. I haven't gone since January because I hurt my elbow,
Hmm.
but that's a big thing for me. Um, yeah, I'm a pretty big homebody to be honest though. Like I just like I'm like pretty busy with work, school, and TOing, so I like just chilling and like just being here and just not having anything to do.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I definitely feel that. Well, you got to come to Detroit for a Cubs game when they're in town because Comerica Park.
Hmm.
I already been there twice this year. I love Comerica. It's such a great park, and hopefully Detroit has a good team this year. We're still trying to figure that out. I feel like we're a middling
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, Major Steez is trying to get me to go. We almost went to the opening day for the Tigers Sox game,
Hmm.
but I just couldn't make it happen. I think Major Steez also got sick, but yeah, I'd love to go. I think the Tigers are good this year, so if they're in the playoffs, I could probably if Big House happens and there's a Tigers game, that might be the play.
That would be
So
so sick. Oh
might have to
my
make that
God.
happen.
We
That would
gotta
be
pray for
insane.
that though. That would be so
Michigan Melee
insane.
outing to Detroit.
Oh my Lord. We might have to drop a couple stacks though for those tickets if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
might be a little expensive,
I think it's worth
but
though. I think it's worth.
for sure. I think if the Cubs ever make it to like the World Series or NLCS or even probably the Division Series again, like I'm gonna go. Like I will
Oh
find a way to
yeah.
make it happen.
Dude, playoff baseball, I feel like the difference between regular season baseball and playoff baseball, especially like in person, the intensity
Oh,
gotta be I've never been to a playoff
but
baseball game, but it gotta
the
be
energy
nice.
is like insane. My cousin, he was at Game Five of the World Series in Chicago. Uh, Left Game Five, drove to his apartment, packed a suitcase, and then drove to Cleveland for Game Six and Seven.
That's sick. That's so
It was
sick.
so insane.
Who's your
Uh,
favorite player on the team right now for the Cubbies?
right now, I think it's. I have a couple favorites. Shoto Imanaga he's played 3 games so far. He's a 0 ERA as a starting pitcher
He's crazy.
after like 13 innings, which is like nuts. Um, he's crazy. I really like Christopher Morel. He's a third baseman. He's got a cannon of an arm, and he just hits a ton of homers. Really good at the plate. I was at a game last year where I think it was like one of his first ever games in the MLB, and he hit a home run, and it was electric. And he was so loud, screaming around the bases, we could hear him from the bleachers. Like genuinely could hear him screaming from the bleachers, which is insane.
Hmm.
Um, so I really like him. Nico Horner is probably going to be like a Gold Glove winner this year. He's at second right now. I don't know. I like the whole team except the bullpen. Bullpen kind of sucks.
Really? Oh, that's a
Yeah,
shame. That's a shame. You got what's his name? Shota, so I mean,
yeah.
at least you got an ace, you know what I
We
mean?
get some starters. Yeah.
Yeah. Last
How about
question.
you? Who do you like on
Me?
Detroit? Do you follow?
I mean, I think Baez is obviously the star right now, and I really
Hmm.
like him. I just feel like our bats have just not been that great. I'm a Tigers fan because I live here, but I'm also like from Seattle, so like I watch the Mariners as
Yeah.
well. I got a Mariners
Okay.
chain, so like both
That's
teams
so
are
sick.
like yeah, both teams are I just wanted them to get into
They're
playoffs,
close.
man. Yeah, like
Yeah.
J Rod is so good too for the Mariners, so it's an exciting time. I went to the Texas game, the Rangers game, the first game of the series, and we lost like 1-0, the Tigers,
Oh,
and it's like it's just like our bats are just not there yet. So hopefully we can develop them and get some hits and get some runs in.
yeah.
But
We did a CLM baseball game the day after Out of the Blue won
that's so
last year.
sick.
We had like 35 people. We had like pretty much our own section to ourselves. Super cool. There's a street right outside Wrigley
Hmm.
called Waveland, and it's just Waveland. It's just Waveland Avenue. So we took a picture under the Waveland sign. It's like oh ha melee. But yeah, for
Yeah,
any Mariners fans as well, you should watch there's a John Boys series about the history of the Mariners. Series is incredible for anybody who's remotely interested in baseball and that hasn't seen it.
yeah, it's
But
fantastic. It is fantastic. Shout out John Boys. They do some great work.
mhm.
We're actually, Negative. He for those
Yeah,
who
Tim. Yeah.
yeah, Tim. For those who don't know, he's one of the TOs and a fantastic competitor on the PR as well. Um, but we're hoping to plan like a little like something similar to that, and then we're also hoping to plan like maybe a wiffle ball game, like because I always want to get melee people
Yes,
to
dude.
play, dude. It would be just so funny, and I mean, Tim plays baseball, like he knows how to play, and so there's gonna be some studs, and there's gonna be just some people swinging at air, you
Yeah.
know. So
We're,
it'll
we're
be
doing
really
this
funny.
too. We're doing this too. The day after Out of the Blue 3 on June 9th, we're having a softball game.
That's sick.
with like a bunch of CLMers.
That's sick. So hey,
Yeah.
I might have to stay an extra day, maybe
Yeah,
get in
come through.
that lineup then.
You should.
Last question for you before we wrap up. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, by the way. Thank you for so much for
Yeah,
joining
thank you
us.
so much. This has been awesome.
If you could play one position in the MLB, what position and why?
Um, I don't know. Probably if I could, if I was good enough, I'd be a starting pitcher. I think there's like only starting pitchers can throw no hitters in perfect games. So starting pitcher probably. But the issue is then you don't get to hit.
Hmm. Unless if you're
So
Shohei and like a god, but
unless you're like the greatest of all time,
yeah.
yeah. So if not that, probably just an outfielder. Probably left field because I'm right-handed, so my better hand over there. But yeah, I think like getting thrown out by like a outfielder just with like a laser beam is so funny.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do that, but
It's one of
honestly, any of them would be fine.
I think it's one of the sickest things when a fielder just throws to third or something and gets someone out. It's like, what the hell?
Mhm.
It's like 200 yards. But yeah, respect.
Yeah.
That's a great pick. And with that, this has been another episode of Items On. I'm your host, Ethiopium. Our esteemed guest today was Tenacity. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you later.